by a friendly prosecutor, and he still has to face the cross-examination. And what was his mood going in terms of how he was going to deal with the taunts and the attacks from the defense, the cross-examination?
So I talked to him last night, right before we were both starting Mother's Day dinner, and I'm sure the moms were equally looking at us aghast that we were talking, but we talked briefly. Number one, this is the easy part, the direct examination. They've gone over, and I've sat with him for 20, 30 hours with this group of prosecutors, and he's well prepared to answer their questions. The test will be hostile and vicious at times, cross-examination. No criticism intended there. Usually cross-examiners get very tough in a criminal case. But the real issue for me and for the three of you is to recall, how did he do when he walked into a congressional hearing room with no judge to preside over unfair questions or the rules of evidence? Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows were there using names, accusing him of all sorts of horrible things. And on the wall behind them, you can't make this up in case you forget, was a big sign on national and international television: "Liar, liar, pants on fire." I thought I was in the third grade, but no, it was in Congress. So he's gone through this before, Andrea, and he did very well that day because we had worked him very hard to keep his voice down, to take anything they threw at him by owning what he had done for Donald Trump that he regretted and that he expressed shame about, and leave it at that. And nobody really provoked him that day, so I don't think he'll get provoked when the cross-examination begins.
Can I jump in on that? Because a lot has happened, Lanny, and it's also good to see you. A lot has happened between that congressional testimony and today. Michael Cohen has gone to prison since then. His antipathy, to put it mildly, toward Donald Trump has grown. He's in a much more fragile state today than he was in 2018 when he was doing that. So Todd Blanche is going to come up, and he's going to try to throw everything he can on him, and he's going to try to call him a liar. And he's got a lot of examples of Michael Cohen lying to use here. How do you coach Michael Cohen, who we all know very well and we know can be quite delicate when pushed, to hold his own? How do you do that?
Well, I think we did it, we, Michael and I, and a group of us, the night before the congressional testimony. I yelled at him. I called him a liar. I did everything I could to provoke him. At one point, I did provoke him, which was my whole purpose. And after he blew up, I said, "Congratulations, Michael." And he said, "For what?" And I said, "For making the Republicans happy if you do that tomorrow." And so I sat behind him throughout the entire testimony, and my only signal to him is if he raised his voice, I would lightly touch his back. And I only had to do that once. And I think he's well trained now, having gone through cross-examination in the AG trial. That was the second time. And he did very well. The judge found him credible. So I do think tomorrow will be the worst of all. He'll be most tested of all. And last night when I said that to him, I said, "Are you ready to take a breath and make believe I'm touching your back?"
Yeah, but there's going to be no one touching his back. There's no help there. He's on a witness stand. He's only 15 feet away from the guy whom he used to admire, to idolize.
He'll touch his own back, and he's got a great wife named Laura and two great children, and I've gotten to know the family. He knows this is a challenge about the truth and about ownership. He has to own what he calls dirty deeds that he did for 10 years for Donald Trump. And every time I hear the word lie, I plead with my fellow panelists and others, finish the sentence. He lied, yes, but he lied for the benefit of Donald Trump, not for himself. Those lies were all for Trump's benefit. He didn't lie about Stormy Daniels to cover up his affair with Stormy Daniels. So that is the complete sentence. But then he has to say to the jury, "But that's no defense that I did it for Donald Trump. It was wrong. It was evil. I'm ashamed, and I take responsibility." That's what he did that day during the congressional hearing. I hope he does it during the cross-examination.
That is interesting. It's clearly the point that the prosecution wants to make, that he lied in service of Donald Trump. Why has Michael Cohen been so vocal surrounding this trial? Has anyone told him that maybe he shouldn't be doing the podcast, maybe he shouldn't be getting up and wearing that T-shirt of Donald Trump behind bars, doing the unnecessary things that might color how he's seen by a jury if they happen to see it, and who knows if they do, or make the judge a little bit more wary of him? Why not just be quiet during this trial?
So I don't know whether you've had emotions that sometimes you can't control, and whether you've ever been in a terrible, terrible ordeal where it's not so easy to take advice. I can certainly say I don't take advice very easily when I'm under a great amount of emotional stress. So Michael has made some mistakes. I certainly do not approve of some of the tweets and the photograph on TikTok. But I do believe that tomorrow, or whenever the cross occurs, he will be the Michael Cohen that you saw during the congressional testimony. We talked about it last night. And if he's provoked, the jury may be sympathetic if it's over the top. But at least, let me stress this. Every day I spent months and months with Michael Cohen, with these prosecutors that you're seeing now question him and others. Every single thing Michael says is corroborated by a document, by an email, or a witness, some of them witnesses friendly to Donald Trump. So this case is created through documentation to corroborate Michael Cohen's testimony, so that we're not just relying on him doing a good job on credibility, which I think he will do. This is all backed up, starting with David Pecker, proving that this was about the campaign. It wasn't about Melania. And if anybody has any doubts on that first legal issue, that's the first legal issue. Was this money given because of the campaign or because of wanting to be a faithful husband? And I'll let the jury decide that question. The second one is, did Donald Trump have reason to know, was he willfully blind, that this was about reimbursing hush money expenses, which is illegal, as opposed to legal expenses? And that's the final legal issue that we'll see what evidence is developed to show that Donald Trump was willfully blind and perfectly well knew that this would be booked as wrongly and falsely as legal expenses, when he perfectly well knew it was about hush money.
Lanny, it's Chris Jansing, and I want to ask you a little bit about the idea of all of us having trouble at times controlling our emotions, and take you back to April 9th, 2018, and Michael Cohen's offices get raided by the FBI. At that time, Donald Trump said something to the effect of that it was a disgraceful situation, and it didn't take a month for him to then say, and I'm talking about Donald Trump, oh, very dismissively, he was a little fraction of whoever did my legal work. And then he stopped paying and his legal bills. And that's, under my understanding, is when he came to you. He named one of his books Revenge. He has never, Michael Cohen, been shy about what he feels about Donald Trump. He's used many colorful phrases about him. Is that, though, reason for him to stay disciplined, even under cross-examination? Do you think he recognizes that, in the end, the best revenge would be for his testimony to be everything that prosecutors would want it to be? And even if revenge is his motivation completely and totally, is that okay? Does it matter?
First of all, it's a great question, and you are correct. All of us have the tendency, when we feel let down by somebody that we've sacrificed for, whatever the relationship is, when somebody lets you down or distances themselves when there's trouble, you're angry about that, at the lack of gratitude, at the mistreatment, at the abusiveness. This is Donald Trump treating almost everyone that way. Almost everybody in his life, he treats that way if they're no longer useful. So yes, Michael wrote a book called Revenge, but that word had a double meaning. Remember the revenge of Donald Trump against Michael after Michael decided to tell the truth, as he said to me and the world when he testified, for his family and his country. So that revenge was tweeting about his wife, alluding to his father-in-law, Michael, that's his wife's father, as being a member of the gang, threatening Michael and really endangering him and his family through his threats as a former president. And then, of course, his campaign is based on revenge and retribution. So these are two people who don't like each other, and Michael has a good reason to be angry. But the answer to your question, sorry to be so long-winded, he will be Michael Cohen of the day of the testimony and the Michael Cohen when he was cross-examined in the courtroom. But he'll be better than that day where he did engage in a back and forth with the cross-examiner. I think he's going to be at his very best. And that's as recently as last night, right before Mother's Day dinner, when he said exactly those words.